So we are back live on this Tottenham Hotspur deadline day with about 6.5 hours left in the window. And I'm delighted to say I'm joined by Scott Byrd today from the Chicken Ball podcast and Tottenham Hotspur as well. Scott, how are you getting on?
Matt, I'm very well. It's an exciting day. Obviously, deadline day is always exciting, but as a Spurs fan, a little bit different of a deadline day than what I'm typically used to. So,
Yeah, it's a bit of a weird one actually, being able to sit back and relax and enjoy a deadline day without the worry of getting any sort of a player in. Of course, we heard today that Milan Skriniar, the one player we were hoping to sign, has of course fallen through today. So what are your opinions on that falling through?
yeah, it's a good question. That we did see Fabrizio Romano tweeted that it was done, and I think that these days what Fabrizio says we can etch in stone. But me personally, I think we're okay. I understand the desire for a world class. World class is maybe a bit of an aggressive title, but somebody who's very highly touted across the footballing world always want to welcome that type of center back to the club. But I think looking at Toby, looking at Davinson, looking at Eric Dyer, looking at Tanganga, and knowing that Davies can fill in too if required, makes me think that we're okay. And maybe call me a dreamer, but I do like the idea of Tanganga having a little bit more room to continue to develop and get opportunities. So.
Yeah, I think that's looking at some of the people who were coming through my live chat today. A lot of the people saying it could be good having us giving Tanganga that chance to get into the first team a bit more. But I feel there's kind of a general feeling that an injury in centre back and we could be in a very weak position. But I suppose Jose Mourinho seems happy with our centre back choices, and we have to trust that he knows best. And we have to stay positive after what was certainly a fantastic window, bringing in five very good first team players, and of course Joe Hart as well. So what do you make of the window we've had?
Yeah, just you beat me to it. Just absolutely fantastic. I think much more than any of us had hoped for. But I think for me, the exciting part is looking at the dollar amount, because I don't think we've actually spent anything above like 50 million pounds or euros. I'm not quite sure what it's going to be drawn up to, but I take in comparison the almost 70 million we paid for Tanguy last year, and of course, I'm very happy to have Tanguy. That's not the point of what I said, but I think that the point is that we seem to have a strategy this year that we haven't seen before. And, we know we've brought in Trevor Birch, who does specialize in loans and frees and whatnot, and we're seeing some fantastic work being done on both sides of that, whether it's the loans for Bale or Sergio, which, the window could be chalked up as a strong enough window without those two guys coming in, but Sergio is not alone, of course, but the unique buyback clause and all of that, I think, is what Trevor Birch specializes in. So we have a strategy for the first time. We're building, the team out around the manager's wishes, and it's just a very exciting time to be a Tottenham supporter.
Yeah, no, I fully agree, and it's, as you say, it's the strategy that we've seen this window. It's a bit new from what we've seen in the past. It's kind of more sensible than anything else, and we've seen, of course, some very astute business done. But I think a very good part to it as well. You mentioned Tanguy and Ndombele. He's almost like a new signing for us this season, because he didn't quite make it last season, but he's speaking today about his relationship with Mourinho improving, and that he's in a much more positive mindset himself. So he could be like another signing for us. And what do you think he can actually go on and do for Spurs?
Great, it's a great point. He really is settling in now, and for me, I think I had a lot of questions around where he would fit into Mourinho's system. I think there was a point where I'll embarrassingly admit that there was a point where I almost thought we should sell him and reinvest in someone who I thought might be a little more well suited to like a low block counterattacking system. But first of all, it's evident that we may not be playing as much of a low block as I think we all anticipated. But all that aside, Tanguy just seems to have embrace this role that Jose wants him to play, which seems to be that guy that can allow us to transition very quickly. And I used to think he was someone that was going to be much more suited to a team that would have all of the ball, really be there to keep a calm, steady presence and pick locks. But I think he's becoming very efficient on the quick transition or even the counter play. And I just think it will allow us to, in my opinion, and I think Lo Celso to some degree here too, allow us to have two of our midfielders sitting and one midfielder just roaming and playing football with a little bit or less restrictions, I guess. So it's just exciting to see what we can do, using two sitters under a Jose system, which his first stint under Chelsea, when he kind of abrupted the English footballing world, he used those two sitters. And I think we're getting back to his roots a little bit. But to your question about Tanguy, I just think he's going to allow us to have so much flexibility in both defense and attack that maybe we haven't seen under Mourinho for a while.
Yeah, and I think, as you say, we got a fantastic glimpse into this midfield sort of system that we could play this season. I think we have to mention that game yesterday against Manchester United. I mean, pierre-emile was absolutely sensational. And Ndombele, of course, a fantastic performance as well. And we still have Gareth, Bale, Lo Celso, Vinicius, and Toby Alderweireld on the bench who weren't in that squad. So what did you make of that? First of all, what did you actually make of the performance and the victory yesterday?
Oh man, the performance was just astute, and I think the red card aside, that's of course going to come up, but I think we had him up against the ropes before that red card was given, and they could have got a couple more. So I think we almost have to set that to the side and just look at how strong of a performance it was. I think you have Kane and Son firing on all cylinders. I'm not sure there's more of a lethal 1-2 punch in world football at the moment. Those two are just on fire. Like you mentioned, Gareth Bale hasn't even joined them up top yet, and we've got guys like Lamela who are, of course, not going to usurp Gareth Bale, but at least make the manager question how quickly Bale joins a squad. So that's a fantastic problem to have. You mentioned Toby too. It's nice to see us play so well at the back without him. Not that I don't want Toby on the field, but it just screams to the depth. I think Serge has been playing fantastically well, and you have to chalk that up to some degree to competition from a very talented right back in Doherty. I think Sergio Reguilon, he reminds me of a peak Danny Rose where he's just flying into everything. He plays fearlessly. And I think all that leads to just what a fantastic performance we had yesterday. Oh, Højbjerg as well. Thank you. My God, he was like you had mentioned. He was everything we asked of a defensive midfielder. Finding that piece we needed. He was destroying. He was covering ground. He paired well with Sissoko. So yes, performance from top to bottom. I don't even know if I can give a man of the match because everybody played so well. But it's the performance on the back of a very challenging week, and all of that considered, I think that performance against United can springboard us to do some pretty significant things this season, and I think we all, as fans, feel it right now.
I fully agree with you. I think that performance on its own, in its own right, was extremely impressive, and it was a fantastic day for the club. But when you take into consideration all these little things with Son, having a little niggly injury for the game, of course, that 4 games in 7 days, the calendar, there's so many different bits that make it that bit more impressive. But I think if you look at, say, the victory we had against Chelsea, when we of course started poorly, we managed to grind out a victory there and going to goal down to United inside a minute and a half. Are we finally starting to see this winning mentality that Jose Mourinho has been known to bring to other clubs?
Great question, and I say absolutely we are. It starts with, excuse me, all the way back to the travesty of a penalty given against Dyer against Newcastle. I think knowing that we had Chelsea in a knockout competition directly after that game, I think the Spurs of old may not have been up to that challenge after such a crushing blow against Newcastle. Stepped up, penalty shootout. Big moment for us. On top of that, we go and qualify for a knockout competition that was crucial to our season. We all know we're going for Europa League, and then again the performance against United. But in such a challenging week, a week that I think the entire world of punditry, fans, players, managers, we even heard Jose mention it. We knew we were up against a lot. I don't think anybody would have expected this last 7-8 days to have gone as well as it did. But again, to your question, it tells me that we have found ways to become resilient mentally, to take things one step at a time, to take some pressure off of ourselves. And I'm not exactly sure how that's happening. Confidence a big piece of that. It always is. But yeah, it's just a Tottenham side that I haven't seen, in my time supporting in that since maybe 2011, where we just have this killer instinct and killer mentality. And maybe that's why you bring Jose Mourinho into a club, right?
Yeah, and I think, would you also say that the addition of Bale to the squad is having this extra sort of impact? So we spoke when he came in about the kind of the mental boost he'll bring in, like the motivation of bringing in a player who, in all honesty, is probably one of the most successful active footballers in the world right now, having won 4 Champions League among many other trophies. So aside from the sort of competition that he brings in for the likes of Son and the other kind of attacking midfielders we have, do you think there's a mental boost to having someone like him in the squad?
100%. I think, the day after we announced him, Son goes out and bags 4 goals, right? And I don't think I don't think that was Son feeling the pressure of Gareth Bale taking his position by any means. Son's undroppable and maybe the best player on our team, but I just think him knowing that he has such a comparable piece of world class talent opposite him now, somebody who has gone and, like you said, 4 Champions Leagues, a La Liga, handful of domestic cups. I can only imagine a Club World Cup, and he's that guy in his national team that it literally just throws the team on his back and just runs as far as he can. So I think we've added a boost off the field just as much as on the field. I think this is all all fictional, right? But I've said this before. I imagine Kane, Bale, Sonny, Hugo, those national team captains sitting down and just discussing how can we win now, starting today. Like, what can we do to be more efficiently towards winning trophies? And Gareth Bale has all kinds of ideas as to what that looks like. So yeah, like you said, it's not even the competition. Of course, the competition builds performance, but just knowing that the club is going out and investing in one of the most decorated players on the planet right now, guys like Harry Kane, guys like Kim Son, they have to be very excited about that, right?
Mm-hmm. And I think like there was a bit of potential worry when we did bring Jose Mourinho in. I think it was it maybe last January window there was talk of Harry Kane leaving, but I think for these players like Dele Alli, there was talk of him as well. These players that are kind of coming around and maybe thinking it is time to move on from Spurs. I think this kind of statement of bringing in Mourinho, bringing in Bale, bringing in Reguilon, who's just won a Europa League, these kind of statement signings, the fact that we're not even in the Champions League and that we can make these signings, I think it's showing to the players that are there, and even to players who maybe could potentially wanting to play for Spurs that we are going somewhere. We're really on the up, and I think trophies are almost an inevitability with Tottenham over the next couple of seasons. What do you think we can actually win?
Yeah, great question. I honestly had this gut feeling that we're very invested in winning the League Cup. As much as Jose plays that off in the press, right? I think he came in at both Chelsea and United, I believe, and won the League Cup in his first seasons. I think he just sees that as an opportunity for us to, in the middle of the season, get a trophy, get that monkey off of our back, say it's done, we have our trophy, let's march on and see what else we can achieve this year. I'm just going to come out and say it. I think we have a shot at winning the Premier League this year, and I think people are going to, and I think people are starting to feel that a little bit more. I didn't feel that way 3 or 4 days ago, but after seeing City's result against Leeds, which Leeds is a very talented team, and take nothing away from them, right? But we see Liverpool get blown out by Aston Villa. I think what we're seeing with some of these bigger squads, and it's common, right? We were there, I think, to a different degree in the last 3 or 4 years, but I look at Liverpool, for example. It's going to be very expensive for them to upgrade anywhere. Thiago's a great signing. Let's, of course, take nothing away from that, but that's really the only piece that they've worked on in the offseason. And so, again, I just think that they'll maybe stall a little bit more than we anticipated. City doesn't seem to be clicking. And again, not to take anything away from us, but my point is I think the door's open for some different opportunities. And as well as we played yesterday, I don't think that was a fluke, and it makes me think we can really go for the league. So League Cup, I think, is something that I'm confident we're actually going to go and win this year. And I feel comfortable saying that because of Jose and his approach to that competition. I think Europa League's wide open for us. I think the Premier League's wide open for us, and that leaves me to have to say the FA Cup's going to be open for us too. So there's everything to play for this year. I mean, 4 competitions that we could actually go and win. It's very exciting.
I think it's crazy that, as you mentioned, like the kind of the quick turnaround in the feeling among the fan base, because after that first game, of course, losing to Everton with a very, very lackluster performance, and all of a sudden we're sitting here, we're after missing out on our signing on deadline day, but we still have that feeling that we can actually go on and be successful this season. Because for me, the question of whether or not we were going to win the league this season wasn't about us and the players we were bringing in. It was about the sheer quality that Liverpool and Man City had. But that's not looking too sure anymore, because Liverpool dropping points against Villa, being absolutely battered. City only 4 points after 3 games, losing to Leicester and drawing against Leeds. I think it's much more open than we've seen in a while. And Jamie Carragher said it yesterday. We could see a Leicester situation transforming again this season. I know Everton are in the mix, but there's no reason that team can't be us. And when we have someone like Harry Kane in our team, who's played 8 games this season, he's 8 goals and 7 assists. He's turning into the type of player that every single team in the world will want. And like if you're looking at like Barcelona, Bayern Munich, all these big teams, he's the type of player that they would want to get. But I just don't think at the moment there's any sort of fee that would even tempt Tottenham into considering to let Harry Kane go. I mean, what have you made of Harry Kane's season so far? Because he's been utterly sensational.
Yeah, he has, like you said, eight goals and 7 assists in 8 games, and that's on the back of the entire world saying that Jose wasn't a good manager for him. He wasn't going to have opportunities to score goals, etc. I just think the biggest piece that we've seen with Kane is, and again, I have to be careful when I say this because I have very strong feelings towards Mauricio Pochettino, and he'll always be etched in my heart, But I think he's not the type of manager who's going to sit down with a world-class player like Kane and say, like, start carrying some arrogance, start carrying some swagger, start acting like you're the best player on the planet. That's just not the Pochettino way. He's very humble, very introspective, where Mourinho's, we saw in the documentary, and of course some of that stage to some degree, but I think we saw Mourinho sit down with Harry Kane and say, like, I'm one of the most successful and famous footballing personas in the world. I'd like you to join me there. So immediately we just see Kane given the freedom, or almost the suggestion that he needs to carry some more arrogance in his game. And I think it's time for Harry Kane to start acting like he's the best striker on the planet, because in my opinion, outside of Lewandowski, he's right there.
Yeah, and I think for me, the thing that kind of sways that you have the constant debate of who's a better striker, is it Harry Kane or Pierre-Emile Aubameyang? And I know Aubameyang is a fantastic footballer. He has some traits that Harry Kane doesn't. His pace being a main one of those. But
sure.
I think the thing for me that sways the discussion in Harry Kane's direction is Aubameyang is a great striker, but Harry Kane is a great all round footballer. He's turning into a playmaker. I think Hugh Wizzy he's an Arsenal fan on a show yesterday saying Harry Kane is turning into Kevin De Bruyne this season, and he's the type of player that you need in your squad if you want to go on and win trophies. Of course, you need to have a very good balanced squad, but you need to have those one or two superstars, and we could potentially have three in our front line alone, with Son and Bale, of course, in there as well. And it's just shaping up to be such an exciting season for Tottenham. The only question you can put out, as I know we mentioned already, is our centre back position. We were hoping to get one in, and at the moment it's not looking as though it's the most likely thing. We actually have an update here from the Athletic UK in the last couple of minutes. Tottenham are strongly considering making an offer for Swansea City central defender Joe Rodon. I can't say I know anything about him, but the Athletic, a very reliable source there. But the name we have been hearing mainly today is Antonio Rudiger. So if we did manage to get that move over the line, what would you make of that?
I'd be okay with it. I think that he is a fairly heavily capped German international. I think he's got 30 plus caps with the German national team. I don't quote me on that, but I think he has good Premier League experience. It seems like he potentially wants out of Chelsea. And I think we've seen players go cross that line before. Maybe not terribly favorable, but for me, I think it's a Jose deal. If he's there, he has Premier League experience. I don't think it's a negative thing at all to bring him into the squad and mix him into the rotation. But yeah, I understand the polarization too. But at this point, I'm okay with the depth, I think.
Yeah, no, I know. I can understand. I suppose the fans, kind of what Antonio Rudiger accused Tottenham fans of last season. Of course, we can't say whether it happened or not, but I know a lot of Tottenham fans have some poor feelings against him because of that, which you can understand. But I think first and foremost, we need to make sure we are the best on the team, best team on the pitch that we can be. And I feel Rudiger coming in is better than not getting anyone at all. And I think it would be a good deal to get over the line. And I know if it's a loan deal, perhaps some people would be saying we're kind of helping Chelsea become a better team in the long run, while we're only helping ourselves in the short term. But maybe that's what we need. That's what we need to get a trophy to over the line this season, and then maybe in the future we can go and look at that Milan Skriniar deal. And look, I think it's been almost the perfect transfer window for us. It's a bit disappointing not to get that deal over the line. But last question: what would you rate our transfer window out of 10 this summer?
Oh, it's already a 10 for me.
Yeah.
I'm tempted to say like 12, 15, 10,000, out of 10. No, it's just been fantastic. And I think, like we discussed earlier, starting from the evident and obvious strategy that we're seeing, to the quality of player we're bringing in. Not only did we bring in, a Gareth Bale who's absolutely top of the game, world class, Sergio Reguilon, who I didn't know much about before we signed him, but it's quickly, becoming evident to me that we've got a real gem on our hands. We bring in guys like Højbjerg and Doherty, who have Premier League experience, not flashy, but they cover some really important gaps, in our 18-man roster, if you will. Joe Hart, I think he is not so much on the field, just that mental piece to what he brings to the game. So from top to bottom, we've plugged gaps. We've brought in world-class talent. We've brought in guys who are going to fix, the mental gaps that I think were plaguing us as a club. And it's all under, again, that common goal. Trevor Birch, Jose Mourinho, Daniel Levy is showing faith in the staff to go and turn assets into trophies. And again, it's just a massive turning point for this club. So 10 out of 10 across the board for me, regardless of what happens with the center back today.
It's great to hear that positivity out of any fan, but it's a Spurs fan. It's absolutely sensational. Scott, Thank you very much for joining me today on the stream. Those of you, if you aren't following Scott on Twitter, it's at DSM Spurs. So make sure and check him out on Twitter. Thanks a million again, Scott, for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, Matt, thank you for having me. It was a great conversation, and up the Spurs as always, right?
Yeah, come on, you Spurs. Cheers, Scott.
Come on, you Spurs. Cheers.